Greetings. This lecture is on development and talent management. In the previous lecture on training, we discussed the differences between training and development. Training is more focused on today, what we need, what our employees need, whereas development is about the forward-thinking ideals that we have for making sure that they are ready to fill our future needs. So we focus on development of our employees, even at the lower level, to some extent, but mostly development happens sort of at the mid-range and higher as we think about our supervisors and the career paths that they're going to be taking up the organization. The nature of talent management is that with talent we want to enhance the attraction, long-term development, and retention of key HR, and the scope is that we want to target the jobs where we want to manage that the best, and we want to deal with high potential individuals. They call them hypos, and those hypo people are the ones that we really want to make sure that we retain because we really believe that they have the greatest likelihood of success, and that we want to keep them focused on staying with our company and helping move our company forward into the future with success. In terms of talent management, there's a couple of key areas. Creating and maintaining a culture that values people. You have to have that if you want to have good talent management programs. You have to value your employees and you have to value their development. You want to identify future needs and develop individuals to fill those needs. It's not enough to say, well, I trained them, but you also have to think about career paths, not only for what the company wants, but also the direction that you want people's careers to move into. You want to establish ways to conduct and manage activities to support talent development. So within your performance management area, through compensation, through pay for performance, through training and development systems, we want to make sure that we're creating opportunities for people to grow. We want to develop a pool of talented individuals who will be ready in the future to jump into job needs and things like that. So it's important that we make sure that we have got a critical mass of individuals who are ready to move forward into positions that we need. The next slide is the talent management bridge. And what this is basically talking about is there are certain aspects of the job that are that the HR function that support good talent management, retention tools, recruiting, selection, making sure we've got a good qualified workforce that meets our demand needs, and so supply and demand is matched well. And those are the things that we need underneath the bridge to hold the bridge up. And within talent management, then, we want to make sure we have good performance management systems in terms of pay for performance and in terms of a performance appraisal system. We want to make sure we've got succession planning, as we talked about with respect to McDonald's. We want to make sure that we have good HR development, that we're engaged in, that people are getting the developmental skills and the training that they need for future jobs. We want to help them with a career plan and a career path, and we need to train them just in the here and now to be able to do their job. Effective talent management is looking at making sure we have the right people with the right capabilities at the right time in the right place. So it's a fairly complex process of ensuring that people are where they need to be at the time they need to be when the organization needs them, and that it matches the employees' needs as well as the employer's needs. When we think about careers and career planning, some of the things that we need to think about here is that what is a career, and how does career planning play a role in the company? Number one, a career is work-related positions that a person occupies their life. So it's usually the number of positions that they have. Then the path that represents how people move through those positions over time. And having jobs and having a career are two separate issues. A job is simply a job. A career is a course of positions that you are connected to, that you see as an aspiration of something that you want to achieve, in your work life. A job is something that we do to make money. A career is something that we do that we have a passion about. So our next slide then is dealing with how do we deal with organization-centered career planning versus individual-centered career planning. Organization-centered career planning is focusing on what the company feels they need and how they want people to progress through the company and in the organization. They have an idea of what they want that career path to look like. Individual-centered career paths are based on what the individual's career needs are rather than on what the organization's needs are. And organizations have to balance between the focus on what they want versus what they want, what the employees want, and it's always a struggle to find that balance, because if there's a mismatch between what the organization wants and what the individual wants, you're not going to end up with people who are happy in their career paths. So in terms of the organizational individual career planning perspectives, let's look at the organizational perspective. The organizational perspective says they want to identify future organizational staffing needs. They want to plan career ladders. They want to assess individual potential and training needs. They want to match the organization's needs to the individual's abilities and audit and develop a career system for the organization. From the individual's point of view, they want to know what their personal abilities and interests are. They want to plan their life and work goals. They want to look at different paths, both inside and outside the company, to figure out what they want to do. Then they want to look at changes in their interests and goals as their career and life move on and change. And if you're not aware of what your needs and interests and changes are, it's going to be hard to develop a career for yourself. So this is part of self-knowledge and self-awareness and self-management, is learning those things about yourself. What can we do to help with the individual career management? Well, we need to do self-assessment. We need to always be engaged in learning about ourselves and what we want to do, what our strengths and weaknesses are. Then we want to get some feedback on what's realistic and what's not. We might all want to be the CEO of, Monsanto or InBev or what have you, but that may not be realistic given our skills and abilities and our aspirations. So it's important to get, a good realistic idea of what we can and can't expect to do in our lives. And then we need to be able to set important career goals, personal career goals. So our choices are going to be a function of our interests, our self-image, our personality, our social background. All these things have influence the kind of choices that we make with our careers. And that's why, you're in college, you meet with your high school, you meet with your guidance counselor, you talk about, what are your interests and what should you focus on, and what were you going to be good at, what are, those kinds of instruments. Those are helpful. In terms of general career paths, look at the career stages. In the age that most of you are in right now, the plus or minus 20 years old, you're in your early career. You're trying to figure out who you are. You're exploring different job options and what your interests are. You're much more focused on external rewards and acquiring capabilities and skills. When you hit mid-career, when you're 30 to 40, you're advancing. Lifestyle is important in some levels, but it's going to limit your options depending on what you're valuing, particularly if you're starting a family. You want growth, you want opportunities, you want to know that you can have something that's going to take you to the long haul. And you're going to focus on values and contributions and integrity and well-being, and these are things that are much more important when you hit mid-career. Late career is when you hit, your 50s, give or take, and here you're focusing on, how do I update my skills? How do I get settled in and be comfortable where I am? How do I settle into a leadership role? Do I engage in mentoring and things like that? When we hit 60 and 70, we're in our career end, we're thinking about retirement, we're thinking about our non-work interests. These things are much more important to us. So what we value more is retirement and part-time employment and sort of that transition, into, something greater. A portable career path is very different than this more traditional career path. A portable career path is looking at beginning, expanding, changing, sustaining, and concluding. And it's not about a path that may be in one particular company, but maybe across several companies. In our beginning path, we spend many years, in a company learning skills. Then we might, develop our networks and make connections to other people, develop a good reputation in our industry. Then we might go to a different industry or go to a different company or go to a smaller company or even start our own company. And this is what we're talking about in terms of it being portable, is you spend your time in the beginning really developing your broad skills, and then by the time you get to that mid phase, you can adapt and go and grow wherever you want to go. And then the issue of sustainability. Can you go back to school? Can you start working in a nonprofit? Can you refresh your skills? Can you learn and upgrade what you know and make a shift to do something different? And then ultimately, you conclude by being a consultant or working as a temp or a subcontractor where you have less responsibility, but you like doing certain tasks and you just do those tasks in order to make money and move on. In individualized career issues, there's certain things that we need to be concerned about with career development in our company. A big one is, how do we deal with technical and professional workers in terms of career ladders? A lot of people, engineers and scientists, don't necessarily want to go into management, but they want to be able to grow and advance and have promotions and make more money. And a lot of times, if there aren't managerial opportunities, that becomes a problem with respect to no opportunities to grow. So we want to make sure we have what we call a dual career ladder for those employees. Then some of the concerns we have with women and minorities is issues with glass ceiling. And women may have gaps in their job resumes and careers because they have taken time off to have kids. And are we providing opportunities for them to grow and to develop and to advance into positions? There are a lot of fields that are not so good when it comes to the advancement of women, and it typically is manufacturing and wholesale environments, mining, agriculture, things like that. Women don't tend to have major roles in those kinds of companies. They are much more likely to succeed in terms of advancing in areas like finance, insurance, and real estate. They have greater opportunities for growth. Retail is also very big for women. Other things that we need to think about in terms of career issues is, how do we deal with dual career couples? And one example is the case that we did a couple weeks ago with Kathy Joyce, and she wanted to relocate to create better opportunities for her husband. And some of you had an adverse reaction to that, understandably so, and some of you didn't think of it as an issue at all. Again, if your families are happy and if your families are secure, you're more likely to be comfortable in your job and able to focus better on your job. So being aware of what we can do to help the entire family unit do better is important. Our last concern is the global issues and people who may be working in global environments. Are we helping them to succeed in these global environments? Are we also helping them as we repatriate them and we move them back into the company? And need to become an integral part of the domestic location as opposed to the international location? Are we giving them the tools to be able to, sequence back into to grow? Now, if they want to stay global, are we giving them global opportunities to grow and advance into different areas of the company? That's important too. In terms of developing our HR, with development, we want to improve their ability to handle a variety of assignments, um, giving them better judgment, responsibility, decision-making, and communication skills. We help them with lifelong learning and redevelopment. So what do we do to help them? We do psychological testing, we use assessment centers, we use performance appraisals, all as a tool to help them to learn more about themselves, and we can also learn about what their needs are and helping them grow from that point on. The HR development approach is looking at job site approaches, how do we train people on the job, off-site approaches, and also a sort of a learning orientation approach where we have corporate universities and career development centers, and companies like LG, companies like Southwest Airlines, Microsoft. They all have corporate universities where people can learn on the job, and they go to these particular places, and the training systems are set up for them. They're really advanced training programs. And all of these are a multifaceted approach to human resource development. In terms of management development, and I know we're working into the last couple of slides here, there's a number of different management development tools that we can use. We can use coaching and mentoring, helping people learn how to be better managers. We can hire external coaches and executive coaches to help people transition from sort of general supervisory positions or non-managerial positions into upper level management. Mentoring, same sort of idea, is that we have an internal system where we have a mentor that we match up that helps us to help people to develop and grow. We can send them to executive education programs. Harvard has big ones, big universities have big executive training, executive MBA programs, things like that. Supervisor development, helping lower level managers learn the basic skills so that they can grow into upper level leaders. Leadership development tools. AT&T is a company that has a great history of leadership development and managerial development. And then modeling good behaviors, management modeling, where we basically pair people up and they learn about, through modeling behaviors, what's appropriate behaviors to engage in to be good managers. In terms of our next stage, when we're talking about stages of the mentoring relationship, this talks about the different stages: initiation, cultivation, separation, and then redefinition. Typically, we match up a more experienced manager with a less experienced manager. We work them through a number of different things. In the beginning, we're helping people, coaching them and learning different skills and abilities. The cultivation stage is where we want to help that less experienced person have self-confidence and have their own unique style and be able to use their own unique style to make things work. Our separation phase is where we help that person to become more independent, to learn the skills that they need to work on their own, to have better judgment on their own. This may take a time to back off and let them grow and develop on their own. And then lastly, the redefinition is where we go from a mentoring relationship where there's someone who's more experienced versus less experienced, and just developing a friendship and letting that friendship develop. A lot of companies have formal mentoring programs, and some companies informal mentoring programs. Formal mentoring programs, the most important thing to remember is even in a formal mentoring program, that the participation should be voluntary. That if people want to be in a mentoring relationship, that it's their choice, because you're more likely to have buy-in from everybody all around when that occurs. Some of the problems that occur with management development efforts. A lot of times we engage in fad training programs, and those fail miserably if we're following the latest fad and not really thinking about how it affects us strategically. Another problem is, as we've discussed, where we don't engage in a needs analysis and we assume it's just a training need as opposed to a selection need. We need to make sure that we're clear about exactly what our needs are. Another problem is where we fail to address organizational factors that result in poor development. So we want to think about some of the management factors that are going on, and that may be something that we have to do in our needs analysis to address that. And part of what we would also learn in our needs analysis is item number 4, that we are substituting training instead of selecting qualified individuals. If we're not selecting the right people and we're just figuring training is going to work, that's where our problem lies. Succession planning is the last couple of slides. With succession planning, what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what our needs are in the company, where we want people to move into, where we want them to grow. We then have to figure out who can replace whom, who's prepared to move, what are their interests, what are their aspirations, what are their skill levels. Once we figure out what we need at the company level, then we need to figure out at the individual level, who's going to fit into what position, and how are we going to get them prepared to do that, and how are we going to review and assess those skills and make sure that people are getting the training that they need. HR's role in succession planning is about developing, identifying the needs of the workforce, assisting in identifying the needed future skills. So we in HR need to be focused on what do we need for the future? Where do we see the company going? We need to be aware of what's going on in the market to say this is the direction we need to head into, and this is why we need to go there. We want to note that employees who might fill future positions, we need to know who's available, who wants to move up, who is capable of moving up. We want to make sure that the succession planning process is then communicated well to our employees, that they're prepared for it. And we want to trace and regularly update our succession plan efforts. So there's a couple of different ways that we can do succession planning. We can make or buy talent. We have to consider, are we going to train them inside, or are we going to go outside and hire them? Then we need to figure out what are the skill areas that we need to see developed, and whether or not we're going to, again, buy them by hiring people from outside, or we're going to train them internally. And we also may want to consider electronic or web-based succession planning. So, this is all part of our human resource information system. It's all set up so that we have very easy access to information to know about who's got skills, who's ready to move up, and what their preparedness looks like. How do we handle the areas for managing succession? We need to think about the leadership skills that people have, their customer relationship capabilities, what kind of internal and industry, external contacts they have, how involved and connected they are to the community, and what are the general managerial capabilities. Do they have the basic skills? And so what we're doing in making good plans for our succession is that we're assessing all 5 of these areas to make sure that our workers are developed, and we're going to assess them on each one of those areas so that when they are ready, we'll know that they've reached the capabilities in all those areas and that they are eligible for promotional opportunities then. What are the values and benefits of succession planning? Number 1, having an adequate supply of employees to fill future positions. Number 2, providing the career paths and plans for the employees, which aids in employee retention and performance motivation. We want to make sure that our employees are happy and developed, and that it will help them to stay motivated if they know that there's career paths available for them. We want to continually review the need for individuals as the organizational changes occur. So we may decide that a particular position is not needed anymore, or we might decide that this person is better suited in another area because of their interests and needs and what our interests and needs are. And so we have to be very willing to continually review these things and shift people where we need to. We want to enhance the organizational brand, and how we want to present ourselves and what we want people to know us for our expertise, and so we want to focus on that. Next, we don't want to focus just on the CEO and the top management team in terms of our mistakes, because if we only focus on the CEO and the top management team, you're going to have problems at the lower levels. We don't want to start too late when we have openings. We want to be thinking about this before we have openings, when everything is stable and what seems to be stable and secure. We also want to make sure that we are linking everything to our strategic plan. So in order for this to work, it's got to be linked to our strategic plan. We want the CEO to be involved, but we don't want the CEO to make all the decisions, because then the CEO is just going to hire people who are just like them. Just as we talked about the idea of homosocial reproduction, the CEO is simply going to have the same people who are identical to them being prepared for the process. So we need a broader group involved in succession decisions, not just the CEO. And we want to be thinking about external candidates, not just internal candidates for advancement opportunities in the company.